to kick us off, but we'll allow some folks to join for the next minute, and then I'll introduce our information session guests. Okay, a good crew on here, so thanks everyone for joining right on time, but we are very pleased to have two folks from the DC Sentencing Commission here just to share more about their work and what they actually do. So you can see Brittany and Megan on the screen, who will dive into some information that hopefully will be helpful for us understanding the greater sphere of public safety in the district, but then also what you all are up to. So without further ado, I think Brittany or Megan, you take it away.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm going to open up my PowerPoint and try to avoid the static.
Oh, I think you're still muted, Brittany.
Sorry, you guys have to give me a little bit of leeway. It's 6:30, so not enough coffee. Give me a second. Okay, are we good do we see my screen now and hear me? Okay. So thank you so much, ANC 1B commissioners, for the opportunity to present. Hello, ANC 1B community members. My name is Brittany Bunch, and I'm the outreach specialist with the DC Sentencing Commission. And I'm joined today by the commission's attorney advisor, Megan Buckley. Say hi, Megan.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having us. I appreciate having us.
Okay, and today we will be providing a brief look at the DC voluntary sentencing guidelines, as well as share some of our felony sentencing data from our 2021 annual report. We'll also put the link for that at the end of the presentation. Also, at the end of the presentation, we will provide an opportunity to join our email list. All you have to do is complete our presentation survey and you will automatically be added. Okay, give me a second. Okay, so the mission of the DC Sentencing Commission is to implement, monitor, and support the district's voluntary sentencing guidelines, as well as to promote fair and consistent sentencing policies. We strive to increase the public's understanding of sentencing policies and practices, as well as we evaluate the effectiveness of the guideline system in order to recommend changes that are based on actual sentencing and corrections practice and research. So we are composed of about 17 members that represent a wide array of criminal justice agencies and entities that are both district and federal based. And we have about 7 staff members that support the daily operations of the commission. Here you see some of our mandates and duties. We do monitor the application of the voluntary sentencing guidelines, and we do a wealth of DC-based felony sentencing research. So we'll get into that research point in a little bit, but this is a full list of our services. On June 14, 2004, DC Superior Courts began imposing sentences under the DC Voluntary Sentencing Guidelines for all felony offenses. The guidelines recommend the length of sentence to impose, as well as the type of sentence to impose. The guidelines impose sentences that take into consideration the severity of the offense, the criminal history of the individual being sentenced, as well as other factors. For more information on sentencing and the voluntary guidelines application, I will provide a link to our new YouTube channel where we go in depth in regards to these grids, as well as the resources in the manual. Like I noted in previous slides, we monitor the application of the DC voluntary sentencing guidelines through determining guideline compliant sentences. So what is a compliant guideline sentence? Well, one of the first measures would be, is the sentence within the in the box range, which is based off of the criminal history of the individual, as well as how severe the offense is, as well as if it is outside of the recommended range that we recommend. We do an evaluation to determine if there are other factors that make it compliant. Here, I would note that the guidelines are voluntary, which means judges can impose any legal sentence. So with this all in mind, we have about a 91.4% in the box compliance rate and about a 98.5% overall compliance rate. So now we're going to take a look at some of our annual report facts. Now, I will let you know, this is not the full spectrum of the data. This is just a snapshot, and we encourage you to view our 2021 annual report in its totality. This data is captured from January 1, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. The impact of COVID should be taken into consideration when making any comparisons between 2020 and 2021 data in previous years. So on this graph, we are looking at felony sentences by year over a 10-year span. As you see, there is an increase from 2020 to 2021 due to the court returning to more in-person services. However, there is still a backlog on felony sentences, so numbers still don't match what we see in pre-pandemic numbers. On this slide here, we're looking at the disposition types at a case level over a 10-year span. And as we have seen in previous years, pleas have the highest disposition. However, at 98.8% of dispositions resulting in pleas, this marks the highest rate the commission has observed in 10 years. And I don't know, Megan, if you wanted to jump in here. I'm sorry.
Sure. So on the graph, we have sentence, violent and non-violent counts for a 10-year period. And again, as Brittany mentioned, the pandemic had a decline, so we see that the numbers are down in 2020 and are starting to rise.
Brittany, would you mind muting your line? Sorry, over there.
Oh.
Sorry, I just want to make sure we could hear you.
No, thank you. And I can start over. Brittany, the PowerPoint just went away though. Do you mind putting that back up, please? Okay, so starting over, this is the sentence violent and non-violent counts. So it's important to keep in mind these are counts. So with pleas or any trial, you are also looking at potentially multiple counts. So this is not sentences. This is going to be a greater variation off that. But as Brittany pointed out, remembering the pandemic and the impact it had on our criminal justice system, slowing down the courts, really restricting access to them. That's why we see such a sharp decline into 2020, and numbers are starting to go back up for 2021, but overall trends remain the same. Drug counts were the lowest sentenced offenses. Homicide, sex, and violent offenses were the next, and then the greatest, as continues to be on trend, is weapon, property, and other remaining offenses. Next slide, please. Brittany, are you able to change the slide? Well, while we wait, it doesn't look like the slide is changing yet, but again, all of our, thought it was gonna change. Here we go. The joys of Zoom, it's great and connects everyone, but doesn't always gives some technical challenges. So this graph shows the sentence imposed by age group at a case level. So again, you're just looking at the cases rather than the counts, which just tends to be a greater number. So the majority of defendants were 30 years old or younger, and that's a significant portion. of the defendants who were sentenced in 2021, with the smallest amounts being 61 or older, and then 15 to 17. And again, this is a consistent number that we have been seeing in the past. Brittany, I think, go to the next slide.
I have to unmute myself. I remembered this time. Give me 1 second, going back to the slide. Okay, so in this graph, we are looking at felony sentencing demographics of 722 out of the 736 of the sentenced individuals in 2021. As seen in previous years, African-American sentenced individuals represent the greatest portion of felony offenders. Okay, give me one. So we just wanted to stress some of our community initiatives. We are focused in on providing DC Voluntary Sentencing Guideline 101 trainings to community groups. And if you are a representative of an agency and you think that your agency would benefit from learning more, me and Megan are always here as a resource to answer questions, but we're also here to host trainings and informational sessions. Another thing that we do have a monthly meeting. Every third Tuesday of the month, we do have a commission member meeting, and we encourage the public to come in there. And we do our Fact Fridays, where we answer community felony sentencing questions. And we encourage any community member who's interested in joining to fill out our Fact Friday Google form. And we do have a new YouTube channel and biannual newsletter coming up. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Our phone number is here, as well as our email address, as well as our social media platforms if you want to follow us there. And there's a wealth of our publications and information on our website. Like I said before, for a chance to join our email list, we'll provide a link to our presentation survey for interested attendees to join. Again, thank you for the opportunity to present. And I do apologize for the issues with Zoom, but we're at the end of our presentation. Again, thank you again for the opportunity. And if there is any questions, we open up the floor.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you both, Brittany and Megan, for being here. I saw Commissioner Ewert's hand first, and then I have a question. Other commissioners, please raise your hands if you'd like to ask.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Farnan. So I have a couple questions, mostly about what type of data is the commission looking for, trying to find, or is there goals in that the commission is trying to find about the violent crime rates versus sentencing, and the recidivism with higher sentencing rates and higher sentencing recommendations? Is the commission looking to recommend smaller sentences? Is there a goal in mind, or is the commission kind of leaving the door open for alternatives to TOO, alternatives as well? Sorry.
So I think that covers kind of a broad range of things. So to kind of give a good overview, the commission handles both data as well as data requests. So in terms of what we were presenting, it was our annual report. So it's a snapshot of both what happened in 2021, again, keeping the pandemic in mind. I'm sorry, I sound like a broken record, but as we saw, the numbers shifted significantly. And also trends in sentencing. So the commission really looks at how offenses are being sentenced. Maybe they're below the guidelines. So we have that box, that range, and then ultimately these are voluntary. So if a judge feels it's not appropriate in that case, whether to go above or below, this is information that the commission keeps in mind. Maybe an offense might be ranked too severely. Trends are showing that it's being sentenced lower, or could go in the opposite direction. So we really take kind of a data-based, focused approach of looking at how sentencing is occurring in the district and responding that way.
So real quick clarification question. So then like the commission is kind of taking that data and like analyzing it and potentially providing alternative recommendations, like potentially changing the grid or something like that.
Yes, so the grid is something that can be changed. It, again, it takes information and determination, but if there's also input from the community, different pieces of information that they take a look at, but things from the grid have shifted, offenses gone down, gone up, looked at different ranges, whether something is appropriate. And again, we're speaking really in generalities. Every case is different and fact specific. So judges are able, within, as long as it's a legal sentence, to sentence however they deem is appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm just, thank you to Brittany for putting in the link for the 2021 annual report. I think that's helpful as residents understand what the commission does and specifically the recommendations that you share with the council. I'd be interested to hear what your most recent conversations with the council are and how you work with either the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety, or if you submit this report and then wait for follow-up questions from the committee. Just how does that relationship work?
Sure. So we do submit, it's part of our statutory requirements to submit an annual report, so that this is part of that process. We do actually receive direct requests from the council, data requests. So they may ask for an example of a data request could be carjacking trends in the district and taking a look. So we respond to data requests from the public, data requests from the council, different other agencies. So we may not always be running every specific case or specific data, but when those requests come in, that's how we typically interact with the council. But if they have any questions, any information, we have our budgetary meetings. So they're apprised of all of this information, and then it varies. If there are big changes that need to happen in the guideline manual, we make them aware. It's definitely a cooperative process. It varies depending on what's going on.
Okay, great. Chair Turner.
Thank you. Your presentation was, I believe, dealt with felonies. Do you monitor misdemeanors as well?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So the guidelines deal with felony sentences. Misdemeanors really come into play when you're looking at past criminal history scores, but misdemeanors are not ranked on the guidelines. And I would say the same for juvenile adjudications too. They can come into play for criminal history scores, but when we're talking about being sentenced, that specific offense is someone who's being sentenced as an adult felony offender. There might be misdemeanors in addition, again, when I was talking about those counts, but ultimately there's no guidelines, compliance, or any kind of recommendation on if there are misdemeanors.
Okay, I noticed on one graph that there was a very small bar for 17 and below. Would those be charged as adults? So you're dealing with the OAG juvenile only with the U.S. attorney and the U.S. court. Is that correct?
Exactly. So it could be, there's the wave down. We could talk for hours about Title 16 and different things, but yes, again, we're really talking about people who are sentenced as an adult felony for their instant offense that we're talking about.
And there was a graph on bench versus jury. Are there any cases or any changes to the ones that are purely now bench becoming bench and jury, or is everything going to stay status quo? I think it's felonies that are 16 month and below. I may have the number wrong. Typically are a bench, not a jury.
So as you saw on the graph, what really is typically happening is pleas, and then our annual report takes into consideration cases that have been sentenced. So say on December 31st, for example, someone had pled guilty, maybe had a jury trial, but hadn't been sentenced yet. Their information, their case, even though it started in 2020, 2021, isn't going to be captured. It's once we have that final sentence so we can run compliance. And in terms of trends, pleas are significantly are what was handled last year. And then I think the backlog of jury trials, as we're going to see, is going to continue to occur if that's the choice.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, that's great. And just looking, it's 41% were not papered, 58% sent to court. And then it's very interesting to see the closed without conviction, pending disposition, and conviction. So I would definitely share, or I'm definitely going to read this whole report of 50 plus pages, but would have others do so as well. Commissioner Kensick, and then I will look at attendees and if any other commissioners too. Of course, we can wrap up right before 7.
Thank you, Commissioner Farnan. Great presentation, appreciate it. Do you guys have a breakdown by ward as to the numbers by ward of all the different numbers, or it's just lumped as a whole, as all 8?
So yes, in the actual annual report, it is just the entire district, but we are getting information into, we call it the grid system, which I know can get confusing because we also refer to them as grids, but into our internal data system, we are starting to get that ward information. I know some of the wards have shifted, so we're realigning that, but that is something. The annual report is really kind of a capture of, again, bigger numbers, bigger cases. We do receive data requests on kind of specific felony types, different types of information, Youth Rehabilitation Act, for an example. So there are different things. It is not meant to encompass every piece of information. It's more to give kind of a broader picture of sentencing in the district.
Fair enough, thank you. The other question is, do you notice now with the legalization of marijuana that the crimes for that I see going down? Is that because of the legalization of marijuana?
So possession is in DC is actually a misdemeanor. So unless it is for liquid PCP, we aren't taking a look at that because it's a misdemeanor. But yes, I think that when you saw what counts were sentenced for, drug offenses on trend have been significantly less. Again, because we're not looking at simple possession of any type of drug, it's a little bit more difficult. But the guidelines do have specific rules to take that into consideration, again, for someone's criminal history. So I would imagine that change, but I can't say with any specificity, unfortunately.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you to all the commissioners who asked questions here. Any attendees? I don't see any hands. I don't see any in the Q&A, but last call there. And then of course, we'll actually post this in our announcement section on the site, just so we have the annual report easily accessible. And then I'll make sure to include it in next week's newsletter. Thank you both ladies though for so much for coming and preparing that presentation. It was wonderful to see.
Thank you guys for having us. I have to go. I have a prior engagement, but you will be sticking around, but please reach out if anyone has any questions.
I will be sticking around. You won't be able to see my pretty face, but I'll be here to hear it all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to you both. Awesome. Well, then I will move it to Chair Turner.
And we will begin our meeting in 4 minutes. So you'll have a brief break. Commissioner Farnan, if you wanted to do any of the community announcements during that time, you can.
Yes, well, actually, we have the fire battalion chief here, so thank you, chief. We'll have you presenting during the public safety portion, public safety community engagement portion after we do our roll call here. And I believe Lieutenant Markowitz is also joining us, so we'll have him just go right before you, just so you know the agenda. But thank you again for sending your PowerPoint and for showing up tonight. I do have a community announcement about voting. Many or if not all, DC residents who are registered with a party in the district have received a mail-in ballot. It's just looks exactly like this, the purple envelope that is hard to miss, and wanted to do a just PSA for voting. We do have a mail ballot drop box in my SMD 1B11, and then many about all around Ward 1. Voting has begun with these mail ballot drop boxes. You can fill out the mail-in ballot that you received and drop off your ballot in one of those places. You can, of course, mail it in, and then, or you can vote in person. And, you know, if you're thinking, oh no, I moved to the district and I have not gotten around to registering to vote, no worries. You can register to vote in person the same day that you go and vote. And I want to tell you the dates, but I don't want to get early voting wrong. In-person early voting is, what is the first day?
Commissioner Farnan, it's June 10th through the 19th.
Thank you. Thank you. And then election day on the 21st. So check, just be apprised of that. That is happening, the primary election. Of course, our voter turnout numbers in past years are always below 50%. So we want to make sure that as many residents have their voice heard with their vote this year. So that was my community announcement for this evening. And I thank you all for engaging in the process. Chair Turner, I think we have 1 minute and we could start 30 seconds early.
Welcome, everyone. It's the ANC 1B monthly meeting. It's June 2nd, 2022, 7 p.m. We are conducting the meeting via Zoom. Madam Secretary, if you will call the roll. I was notified that Commissioner Thomas is unable to join us this evening.
Commissioner Handerhan,
Present.
Commissioner Orlowski,
Present.
Commissioner Amar, Commissioner Thomas, Commissioner Kinsick,
Present.
Commissioner Floyd, Commissioner Ewart,
Present.
Commissioner Bana,
Present.
Commissioner Turner,
Present.
Commissioner Farnan,
Present.
Commissioner Harris, present. We have a quorum of 8 of 11.
Thank you. Commissioners, but you have an agenda before you, which includes the consent agenda that includes the May draft meeting minutes. Without objection, we'll move and approve the agenda.
So quick amendment to the agenda on the Transportation Committee section. The resolution is not changing, but I accidentally wrote it, the information wrong. It is W Street as well as 8th Street for the second proposed resolution, residential pickup and drop off zone pilot. It includes 8th Street as well as W Street. Just wanted to make that clarification.
8th W, 15th, 13th.
And so 8th W, so the 4 streets.
So it's W Street between 15th and 13th. And it's 8th Street. Hold on. Sorry about this. Appreciate everyone's patience.
Is it W and 8th, and then it's
Sorry, and 1900th block of 8th Street.
okay.
So approved with one minor amendment.
So it's W between 15th, 13th, and the 1900 block of 8th.
Correct.
Thank you.
And the 1900 block of 8th Street, that's in Commissioner Farnan's SMD.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Thomas is not with us. Commissioner Farnan, Public Safety.
All right. I see Lieutenant Markowitz joined us, so wanted to give him the opportunity to do updates first and questions of the MPD first, and then we'll go to the battalion fire chief.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well and weathering these storms. Crime-wise, ANC 1B is doing actually pretty well this month. We're down in most of our major categories. Theft from auto still is one of our sticking points. But crimes are sort of trending down in ANC 1B. The Columbia Heights engagement team has been doing a lot of good work in Columbia Heights and in the surrounding neighborhoods. They've recovered, it's over 20 guns since they've started. And our district as a whole, I believe we're at about somewhere between 60 and 80 guns right now. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot in the way of other major updates this month.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for showing up. I know a few commissioners have questions. I have just, I think, two questions that I could ask you. One, sure. I've been seeing a lot of folks or MPD engagement officers and just officers in general on the Segway, which I love. I always say hi, we get to engage, and they're out in the community. Wanted to inquire on like the summer plan and if you anticipate that kind of Segway bike specific crowd from MPD to be out and more prominent, and specifically in Ward 1.
Yeah, so we are tweaking we have a shift overlap because we're on 10-hour days. We have a few hours where we overlap, and we've been tweaking how we deploy our officers. And U Street has become a sort of a monster into itself. So that's getting a bunch of our resources, and we're trying to figure out ways to better deal with the issues that come up with U Street, specifically down in the area of 9th and U. So part of the overlap plan has to do with foot, bike, and Segway patrols. So you will definitely see more. We also have monthly robbery overtime officers out and about, which will be usually they have a vehicle, but they're supposed to be walking around and engaging with people. But part of it's a visibility component and the other part's engagement.
Okay, great. That's great to know. And I definitely have noticed that overlap plan. So love to see that continue. And then with bike deployment, if you do finalize a specific plan on like Ward 1 specifically is getting like this amount of officers on bike, I would love to have that number to share with residents, because I think people do appreciate officers outside of their cars, really just so much. So that is my request from you. But then one more question on, what was it? Oh, car window smashing. So not specifically carjackings, but yeah, in like 1B11, specifically just 8th Street, 9th Street, like the back alley 9th Street, and then going down all the way to like 9th and T and S, as you said, has just been a hot spot lately with folks, getting out from the clubs and whatnot. But seeing this as like a joyride thing, down the way, nobody's reporting anything stolen from their cars from people who I've talked to. But just the window smashing. So what is something that you all are working on? And then maybe what's something that we can request as community members to try and deter this? Like, I know lighting is a big thing, but other than that.
The crime camera rebate program has been hugely helpful. The network of cameras, because theft from autos are incredibly hard to close. We sort of refer to them as the white elephant crimes because they're low priority and they're so quick. They happen so fast. So a lot of times dispatch, because they're low priority and not violent crimes, usually will not dispatch them right away because the other stuff is precedent. So the cameras are vital in catching people and identifying people. It's hard. It's sort of like leading people to water and making them drink, getting people to not leave stuff in their cars. When people go to clubs, they leave purses and all sorts of stuff in their car because they don't want to bring it into the club or check it. And it's become sort of like a target rich environment. But lighting does help. The best thing is to not leave anything visible.
Okay. I think that's great. I see a few other commissioners' hands up, so I'll turn it over to Commissioner Harris and then Commissioner Bana.
Hi, Lieutenant Markowitz. I definitely have some questions on updates on several shootings that have happened in my SMD, but I am wondering for kind of the, I guess, bike patrol, what is the general focus for the officers on that? Are they supposed to be kind of just riding through or kind of, I guess, yeah, what is their purpose?
It varies on the time of day that they're out there, because the nightlife area becomes a much sort of different type of sort of law enforcement experience, for lack of better words, because the nightlife crowds are much different than, say, the daytime crowds and crime, say, that we see. So engagement is huge. We're really trying to push officers to engage with people, business owners and community members, and also to be engaging the bad actors who are up to no good in the area. So not necessarily to arrest everybody for everything, but to also let them know, hey, we're out here and we're kind of, we know that something fishy is afoot. So
how do you know if they're bad actors?
A lot of that has to go with training experience. Not everybody out and about is obviously a bad actor, but we have people that are widely known to third district members who have been arrested multiple times for gun possession or selling narcotics, and they're continually come out to these areas where they've been arrested doing the same activities before. So it comes down to officers knowing the people on their beats and the individuals who they've had prior interactions with.
Yeah, I hope that they also engage with, I guess, other community leaders and ANCs, because what I noticed last summer were a lot of the officers were more so focused on just community members hanging out with, generally, like, they weren't, the community members were just hanging out, not doing anything, when there probably should have been more focus on, you know, the alleyways and riding through there versus stopping for the perceived lower level offenses. So I would welcome a conversation with any of the officers who have a beat, I guess, in my district, and I'm sure other commissioners would as well too. And we can definitely give you a lay of the land, knowing kind of the community. But I have questions on 3 shootings that have happened this year. So first, do you have any updates on a shooting that happened on April 12th on 14th Street at around 9:45 p.m.?
About where on 14th Street?
So right where Bus Boys and Poets is. So I believe it's the, oh gosh, so the 2000 block.
Yeah.
It's around 14th and B, but it's not on 14th and B.
And you said April
12th.
12th. I can look it up and I'll email you.
Okay. And then another shooting on 14th and V, specifically right outside the Reed Center on March 15th.
That one is still being investigated by detectives. There's been no closures or anything.
Okay. And then what about an update on the shooting that took place on February 12th on 14th and V? And then 2 victims were found at the Sunoco on 15th and U.
Yeah, that one is still also with the 3rd District detectives. I can't obviously share the investigative details, but detectives still have that and are investigating.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Appreciate that. And then Commissioner Bana, and then Commissioner Kensick. And then I do see a question from Diane. So Diane, thanks for writing that. Just wanted to acknowledge, and we'll get to that question.
Hi, Lieutenant Markowitz. 2 quick questions. First one, so on past meetings, we spoke about up in sort of my area towards Lower Columbia Heights. We see a lot of the cruisers parked with just the lights on, folks inside them or officers inside them hang out. I've also noticed that now. I was coming home on Monday night, actually, there was one parked in the median. Now, I'm not even up by me, but down by on 13th and W, like parked in the middle of the street, like inside the yellow, and lights flashing, and it was in the middle of the street, and I imagine it was like going in people's windows. So I was wondering if is that a strategy now that is moving from also Columbia Heights now down towards U Street, that you're having cruisers parked off U Street in the neighborhoods for visibility? Is that like an intentional strategy, or was that potentially responding to something? But it was parked in the median and 2 officers in the 2 front seats with the lights on.
That doesn't sound congruent with our strategies. So we try to avoid parking in the medians because of obviously community complaints, and also it's not a great optic. So I can't really attest to exactly what they were doing, but no, we can reiterate with the officers doing the overtime details and the overlap to sort of abide by parking regulations. And one of the things we've sort of been hearing, and I think this partially has to do with modern police lights being very bright, is the lights can be annoying to residents. So we're trying to find that happy medium of visibility, because we have found that, such as in Mount Pleasant, we had a bunch of armed robberies, street robberies, and we deployed up there, and we had officers on foot, but they parked their cars with their lights on, and it increases the amount of sort of the spread that you can see that the police are there. So, like I said, we hear complaints about the lights, and we can discuss that as managers. So, and I'll reiterate with people to park legally and not park in medians, because that really shouldn't happen.
Thank you. And then just really quick, you mentioned some gun recovery earlier, some numbers, and there was someone that put it in the chat, but there was a recent article in the Washington Post talking about that a lot of those gun recovery, then the prosecutors aren't actually able to make those charges stick because police aren't following procedure and are violating people's rights. Can you speak at all to the training that might be happening, or to ensure that things are being done properly with that gun recovery work?
As to the broader issue, I can't really speak to it. I'm not really in a position to, but every time we have a gun recovery and I have to review the arrests and the reasons why, the things that led to the stop, the probable cause has to be put in the arrest. It has to be written and documented very well. And to the gun recoveries that have come across my desk, it's all been documented actually extraordinarily well. Like I said, I can't really attest to the bigger issue. I think there's always been some back and forth between the police department and the U.S. Attorney's Office about the reason cases are getting papered or not. All I
Okay.
can say, we try to improve it.
Thanks.
The best.
That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate that, Commissioner. Commissioner Kensick, and then Commissioner Ewert.
Lieutenant, I think you're doing a great job. I've actually noticed a lot more police presence in the area. I think that you guys have a really thankless job and that people really hit you over the head. So keep doing the best you can. This is a difficult city, and I do personally, and a lot of my constituents in 1B05 appreciate you and your team. I wanted to just ask you in regards to the CCTV, which I know is just a constant issue, and I hear it from all different people of 1B. If there's been any updates or anything that we're looking to do. I know Nadeau is now suddenly throwing that out there too. I mean, I know it's election season, but I really would like to see if there is a plan as to what we're doing to try to control that because it's obnoxious and people can get hurt, obviously.
Are you talking about the ATVs?
Yes.
Oh God, that's the bane of our existence. That is probably at the 3rd district. That is the biggest complaint that we have weekly, daily. It's an incredibly hard thing to deal with because we really have to manage the public safety of citizens, and then the ATVs really try to bait us into a show of trying to arrest them. Occasionally we get lucky. About a week ago, officers got lucky at an intersection. They were just driving by and they saw a bunch of ATVs and they just jumped out of their police car and got one. So that's been one of our sort of effective tactics. But it's a very difficult situation to deal with.
Understood. That's fair. And the last question I have is just on 16th Street, between 16th and 15th on W. A lot of people have been noticing more break-ins there. Again, I think it goes to a lot of homeless things that we can work on as a community and try to help people to get better.
Alan, you have no proof that it's homeless people who is doing that. You can't make assertions like that.
If you let me finish, please. I was saying that there's been a couple of homeless people in the area that actually have been removed from the area who just needed mental help, and they've been caught actually breaking into cars and taking like an umbrella.
Okay, let's just get to the question, the root of the question, and move on behind observations that haven't been proven. So let's just ask the question. Thank you.
So the question is how are we policing better W between 16th and B?
I'll reach out for that area because I'm just a little bit north of that, and I'll let them know that there's some theft from auto concerns there. And we may be able to move some of our high visibility and robbery overtime folks over there to do some preventative measures.
Okay, Commissioner Ewert.
Yeah, thanks for your time. My only request is to have police stop parking in the bus lanes on 14th Street. Thank you.
I'll second that request. I know Lieutenant Markowitz, you were here, I think it was 2 times ago, and Commissioner Ewert and I have been talking to residents who send us photos of police cruisers parked in the bus lane on 14th, right before you get to that giant area. I'm sure that you're aware of this.
Yep.
Okay. Keep at it. Keep enforcing. We'll keep taking photos.
Noted. I'll work on that.
Thank you. We appreciate it. I did want to note 2 community questions. So Ms. Diane, dealing with a specific neighborhood kind of concern with a group that they know is just hoping to engage with them, but haven't been successful. Diane, I shared my email with you, so hopefully we could get more details on specifically your area. I can connect with Lieutenant Markowitz on who the right person would be to either work with from the police or work with from a community liaison partner. Thank you. I just saw your chat. I'll email you. So look forward to hearing from you. And then we did have one in the Q&A. Alice, so sorry that this happened to you. One of my neighbors recently had her airbags stolen out of her car. Any tips on how to prevent that? I mean, what are people doing with an airbag? Just a comment there.
Well, it's one of those things. Wheel thefts, rim thefts, catalytic converters, and airbag. With the economy sort of where it is, people are able to turn those vehicle parts over for a quick buck. You can sell them either to shady car shops, on the internet, and it doesn't take long to actually steal the devices. The best I can say is try and park in a well-lit area. I know DC parking is notoriously incredibly difficult to find. It's pretty much, if you find it, you must take it. But to prevent something like an airbag theft, you could go back to using sort of like an old style club that goes across the steering wheel, because someone's not going to be able to steal an airbag there. But with all theft from auto things, if someone's determined to steal your stuff, they're going to. But a club would prevent specifically airbag theft, a steering wheel club.
Yeah. And I really just hate to have to recommend that to neighbors, but obviously that's the prompt solution. But I do think, as you mentioned earlier, just infrastructure investment and lighting is the best way we can prevent these just people from breaking windows. And then
it's such a crime of opportunity. It's from a prevention standpoint for us, it's very challenging. So we are much better at catching people after the fact from surveillance camera and all that, but it doesn't necessarily do anything to prevent it from happening in the first place. But the lighting does play a role in making an area less appealing for somebody to sort of lurk in and then break a window.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Lieutenant Markowitz, thank you so much. I don't see any. Yeah.
If I could add, I had a discussion recently with Chief Emmerman, who is now in the technology side of MPD, and they are thinking and looking at ways of expanding the concept of what we did for video cameras to consumer products that people may have in their car, in a personal item, to start to help to track down people. So they're looking at ways of using more consumer technologies and being able to, now it's not, doesn't mean they're going to dispatch a squadron after a bag that's appearing somewhere in a Find My Bag, but it is going to help to recover stolen items and hopefully get some more fingerprints or something to help.
One of the, you just made me think of one thing. So there's dash cameras that some people buy, and some record all the time when the vehicle's parked. Others only record while you're driving, but that can also be a deterrent. But the flip side of that is it's another item that someone could potentially steal. You can hardwire them so it's much harder to steal, but that could also be a visual deterrent for people as well.
You mean like people stealing video cameras, doorbells?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Chair Turner, I appreciate that. I'd look forward to learning more about that. Maybe we can pay people to have lights on their sidewalk like area. I don't know. Okay, great. Anything else? Last call here. Okay, Lieutenant Markowitz, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I think it was a great Q&A session.
Cool, thank you.
Great.
And everybody stay safe and email me if you got any questions.
Okay, wonderful. We'll follow up on some of Commissioner Harris's stuff and then my bike question. Great. Cool. Battalion Fire Chief, thank you so much again for being here. I know I'm taking up some time with the public safety meeting, but I know you sent in a link into the chat, so I will resurface that right now for folks watching, and then you can take it away.
Okay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I won't take up too much of your time. I provided the link and some information on two of our ongoing initiatives. One would be the Hands on Hearts program, and the other would be Pulse Point. They're related together in our effort to engage the community in increased CPR awareness and trying to save lives. So those programs are out there. You can visit our website at the contact information I provided to schedule any Hands on Hearts or find out where we're doing it at. And the links, I made all the links active in the website so you can download the Pulse Point app if you're interested in adding that to your smartphone and finding out where we can engage with the community to get providers to the scene before we get there. So that's our goal. Just Great. One other note I have, it's not necessarily related to your ward, but the next ward up in Petworth, we just completed 278 home inspections, installed 15 smoke detectors. So that's where we're engaging in the community to try to do our part with the fire prevention and things before they can get started. So those type of things are going around in the areas around you. We just did the one in May, which was actually in our ward over by Howard University. So just some of those things that we're trying to engage with the community. But I'll be happy to answer any questions, or you feel free to email me. And if I don't have the answer, I'll find it for you.
Great. I appreciate that. And yeah, Commissioner Harris, go ahead first.
I just want to say the Hands on Hearts CPR program is great. I saw that y'all were out on the Reeves Center a year ago when I took it, and then, or I think last fall, and then I saw you out like the last couple of weekends. But everyone should stop by. It's super easy to learn. I personally do want to take a CPR training anyway. But I have downloaded the Pulse Point app. I don't have it on my phone anymore. But there was an instance where I saw someone who potentially needed help, who was, I think, severely dehydrated, but just needed emergency services. So I called 911. But there were people who had kind of the Pulse Point app who came out to try to help. There was actually a doctor who was just visiting, I think, from Blacksburg, Virginia, and then came out to help. So if there are people kind of in the audience, community members who are trained on CPR, highly recommend you downloading the app because it certainly can save someone's life.
Yep, absolutely. Just case in point, we just had one today in your ward. One of a citizen experienced a cardiac arrest suddenly while they were at the grocery store, one of the local markets, and our engine got there, was able to use their defibrillator and got them back. They had pulses and had a good blood pressure before we got to the hospital. And the people that were there were engaged in Hands on Hearts before we got there. So it does work. And the community is getting it. So if we keep pushing it out, and you keep telling your constituents, one person tells someone else, and by the time we're done, we're well on our way to making a difference.
Great. Commissioner Harris, I'll take that CPR class with you, and we can show up to Pulse on Point together.
So we actually just got a call, so I'm on duty right now.
I appreciate you. Great timing.
So, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thanks.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Yep, thanks.
Great. We'll also post that link and just presentation to the website in case folks are watching and maybe they want to share this with their neighbors, but I absolutely will be downloading that and seeing. My youngest sister is trained and just got certified as an EMT. So she's doing this all day, every day. I do have one last request. If the commission will indulge me, so apologies for my kind of last minute presentations, but I see Mr. Justin, do not want to pronounce your name wrong, Inhea, please correct me when you come on, who it has been leading a lot of or fielding a lot of requests from DPW, from me specifically. I'm sure others have worked with him as well. Would love to bring him up just for a 5-minute discussion on what he's seeing in Ward 1 and take any questions from commissioners. He's in the attendees, Commissioner Harris.
Justin, I am trying to promote you. Okay, you're rejoining. I see that. Okay, there you go. Can you hear us? You should be able to take yourself off of mute.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes, good evening. My name is Justin Ingea.
Ingea, okay,
Yes.
got it now.
I'm with Public Works. I'm an inspector in your area. The issues I see the most are trash containers left in the alleys. People don't return them back into their properties after trash and recycling collection. We also see, right now we see a lot of bags of leaves. People place, it looks like the city has decided that they encourage people to call 311 and request a special collection for those bags of leaves. We still have, and they encourage people also to use yard waste bags, paper bags, instead of regular trash bags. That means black or white. So they want people to use those yard waste bags. Another thing we have a program they call Helping Hands. So Helping Hand program is used, let us say, if you want your neighborhood a special cleanup and you want the district to pick up the trash immediately after the cleanup. So you can call my office. So let me give you the guy's email address. The guy email's address is the person responsible of this program. His name is William David. Hold on, let me find the email he sent. I can forward you his email later on. I don't see it here right now. But
that's great.
Yes, he gave us the email, and so that if you have interest, because if you request for his service to use the city service, okay, his name is here, William David Jr. So you have to put a Jr. there, the Helping Hand program. So his telephone number is, you can call 202-645-7190 and say you want to talk to Mr. David Williams. That way, if you inquire about the program, he will tell you he will help you get the tools. We give you the tools. I believe we give gloves also. And also, you need a special location where you put your trash after the cleanup. That way, the city will come immediately after the cleanup and pick up the trash. Instead of, if you have a cleanup without telling us, then you leave it in front of somebody's property, the person might get a ticket because we will not know that you had that neighborhood cleanup. Yeah, so it's about the trash cans left in the alleys. Some people don't know, what some people don't understand is that every trash can is supposed to be, I believe it is assigned to a property. So that W and R serial numbers, they are assigned to a property. So this being said, if I drive in your alley and see your trash cans, if it's in the rear of your neighbor's house, although it's your neighbor using it, if it's not labeled for your neighbor, I will give you a ticket. You can get a ticket or a warning. So, because we know this trash can is assigned to this property, but because people don't label the containers or they don't remember that the R and W serial numbers, they might just pick up any containers behind that property. So we encourage people to label the containers and also to pick them up after collection. But my issue with that is that in some neighborhood they work well. People work well with each other, and they pile the trash, the containers well in the alley, in the rear of their properties, not just leave them like in some alleys you have the containers in the middle of the alleys or blocking somebody's back. Yeah. So those are the only concern. Also, we have some illegal dumpings. People don't take advantage of 311, which is a free service. You bring your bulky item out when they tell you, when they give you a date. And for mattresses, you have to wrap them up, not just bring them there. I see some people, they just dump, maybe people move out, they just dump everything on the sidewalk. That doesn't look good. Yeah. So those are the only things I see in the neighborhoods. If you have any question or anything you want me to specifically know or address, we will. I can take notes and we will send somebody to address it. That means
Wonderful. Thank you, Justin. I really appreciate you coming. And I know that a lot of commissioners have worked with you. So thank you for your responsiveness. I'll go to Chair Turner, then Commissioner Baina, then Commissioner Ewert.
Hi, Justin. Thanks for coming this evening. I sometimes think that we should buy you an apartment for the amount of time you spend in the Girard Fairmont alley and the Girard Harvard alley. on just the issues that keep getting recurring. If you could spend a couple of minutes on the containers, you did talk about ticketing on the containers. We do have people who steal containers. So the owner may still be responsible, but someone has gone off somewhere with the container. So if you could, I'm going to give you a list of things here, and you can just address them on one big discussion if you want. The containers and people stealing containers, overfilling containers, ticketing, and how the ticketing when no one gets the ticket. How do they get the ticket? Does it go to the renter? Does it go to the owner and such? And some people don't know whether to put the container in the front or the rear. We have a lot of people who are still putting it in front because the alley was being repaved, but they now refuse to move to the rear. Of course, the one thing you've been dealing with in my district are the two nuisance properties, the one on Fairmont and the one in the alley between Girard and Harvard, near Sherman. And of course, people using public cans for private trash. How's
Yes,
that for everything you deal with every minute, every day?
Yes, so for containers, let us say you live at 100 A Street or Girard Street Northwest. Now, if somebody take your container, let us assume that it's just an honest mistake. Your neighbor at 110 is using your container. If it's in that vicinity, if I give you a warning, I can tell you that your container was observing the rear of 110 Girard Street in the same vicinity. But sometimes, I don't know if when people move, they move with their containers. I really don't understand it. You can find a container that belongs to Southeast or somewhere Farragut, Northwest or Northeast, somewhere in the alley. So for me, my understanding of that is that maybe somebody thought that the container belongs to him. They don't belong to the individual, they belong to the property. And if we have to issue a warning or a citation, let us say for a container that is abused at the correct location, we'll issue the citation to the owner of the property, not to the tenant, because we normally don't know the information, that means the name or the address, no, the name of the tenant. We know the name of the owner of the property. So when we issue the containers, we issue them at the property and it belongs to the property. So the only person responsible of that, either he lives there or not, is the owner of the property. So if your container is stolen now, let us say your container is stolen from Fairmont and it's been used, it was taken by somebody in the neighborhood, they took it to, let us say, to Columbia Road. So that's really, if I find it there, I might, if it's empty, sometimes what I put in my truck, then I bring it back to that property. But if it's full of trash, I understand that this was stolen and it's been misused. So I can call our office and find out if this address has a container, a trash container. If they do, I will just dispose of it. Because if it's still there out there, it will just be yours for that address, that original address. So in order to avoid all that, we just dispose of it. If you are not complaining about it, or if you have a container to use. Did I answer your question?
Great.
I think that you did. Chair Turner, if you have any others, but Commissioner Branham, we'll go to you.
Yeah, just really quick, I wanted to highlight something that Commissioner Harris put in the chat, that just so people are aware, the 311, the bulk trash pickup, is only for single family homes or buildings with 3 or fewer units. So if you're in a bigger building or even just one that has 4 or 5 units, it's up to your landlord or your condo association or whatever to deal with that bulk pickup. So you can't just leave it outside, because people think that DPW just can pick it up. So kind of on that, Justin, is there literature or flyers or anything you have that like we could drop and target some of these buildings that like explains it? I mean, I've written like notes and like put it on this building and be like, you need to not do this, but do you have something official? Could I reach out to maybe Celeste?
Yes, I believe we have some flyers. I don't let's say specifically 3 units or less, but we have some flyers that deal with illegal, with bulky items or even trash disposal.
Yeah, because I think sometimes it's not people maliciously dumping their stuff outside. I mean, sometimes it is, but a lot of times they think that, oh, they'll just pick it up, and they do pick it up because myself or one of the other commissioners is snapping it on 311, and then it eventually gets picked up. Anyway, thank you.
You're welcome. But in that case, let me just add, if they leave some bulky items in front of their property, if they are in front of their property, we will just give them the ticket to the owner of the property, then we remove it. Because people also take advantage of the system, that the system will remove it, then they just abuse it. I have a case of somebody, he first created a survey request with something light. I pick it up. A few days later, he created another survey request for a bigger, bulky item. I said, no, you cannot abuse the system. You are a multi-unit apartment building. The city does not provide you this service. So I gave him a ticket. But because he tested what he can take advantage of. But the small item, I remove it because it was like blocking the sidewalk. If somebody's walking, pushing the baby, the stroller, she will have a problem. But the bigger item, I gave him a ticket. So the big apartment buildings, we have to remind them that they don't receive that city service. But I will talk to Ms. Celeste, or you can reach out to Ms. Celeste to find out.
Hey, Justin.
Yes, go ahead.
Who's the best person to reach out to about stormwater issues? After this afternoon's rainstorm, I noticed a couple spots in my neighborhood that were just the storm drains were just absolutely clogged and the water was not draining at all. Who can we talk to about that?
It's WASA. I have a couple of contacts with them. So if I find them, I can direct them to you.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Then send them to you. That way you email them, they will respond, and they will send a crew to address the problem.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
I think you can do 311 as well.
Yeah, I did one earlier today. But yeah, just having a direct contact would be easy, because it's hard to, my issue is always like, you can only really tell when it's raining, and I don't want to go outside and take a picture while it's raining. So like I have to kind of get in this happy zone of like, oh, it just stormed and I happen to be outside or just get caught in it or something like that. So, but yeah, thank you.
Well,
Commissioner Harris?
And just quickly here, Justin, thank you so much for all that you do. Really appreciate your work, and even coming out to kind of around U Street and inspecting. So really thank you so much, because I think hopefully you hear that a lot, but would like to add to that appreciation. Something I wanted to note to kind of neighbors with the kind of illegal dumping, and also please don't dispose your trash in the public trash cans. So I pulled all of the 311 data for 2021, and rats become a really big issue in June, the month we're in. It was the top month last year. So with kind of disposing your trash in the public trash cans, illegally dumping, that only increases our issues with rats. So please don't do that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that concludes my public safety portion. Thank you, Justin, for jumping in with us there. And thank you to commissioners for all your questions. I do want to say that I will announce our in-person meeting. We hit a few hiccups in May on trying to gather in person, but gathering all these stakeholders that we talked about at last meeting to understand beyond MPD and the public safety realm. That's how we got in touch with the DC Sentencing Commission. But I would love to get the U.S. Attorney's Office, who I believe someone is on here, and the Attorney General's office at the public safety meeting. So hoping for the last week in June, we'll share that with everyone who's on this call, but of course on our website as well.
Thank you.
Chair Turner, I think back to you.
Thank you. CPD, Mr. Nelson.
Good evening, everyone. Now we have one item that we need to discuss tonight for the commission to review, and that is a project located at 1314 T Street in an RF1 zone. It's located in 1B12, which is Sable Harris's SMD, and this is a BZA case. We have come before the committee and asked us to review a project that is requesting special exceptions from the rear addition requirements, the lot occupancy requirements for constructing a 2-story with basement rear addition and converting it to a 2-unit flat in the existing building at 1314 T Street. The committee has reviewed this and is recommending that the ANC support the special exceptions as noted. And I will take just a brief second to ask Amanda or whoever is in control of this meeting, I assume it's probably Sable, to allow Marty Sullivan, who I think is on in the attendees list, to make a brief statement.
Sure. I
think you might
do
be
not-
on.
Oh, okay. I'm assuming this is you, Marty, with.
Should be probably Sarah Holcomb, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I'm zoning counsel for the applicant, Marty Sullivan. And after we had the committee meeting 2 weeks ago, I discovered that we needed another area of relief. So nothing has changed in the plans, but we need special exception relief for penthouse height. It's 1 foot 8 inches over, and this is a new provision that just came through with the last penthouse. Like a year ago, on a single and a flat, you could not have a penthouse at all as a matter of right. And now you can, except that you can only do it if the total height of the building and the penthouse are within the matter of right permitted height for the building. So the penthouse, the top of the penthouse has to be within 35 feet. And we're at 36.8. And there were some confusing provisions. There was an oversight and confusion on my part. And I talked to the zoning administrator last week, and he confirmed that we are subject to that. And there is a special exception available for that. The criteria for that are just the general special exception criteria. So there's nothing else to add to the argument. The plans haven't changed. And I'd like to ask the commission if they would consider that as part of their approval as well, even though the committee did not specifically address that in their meeting. Thank you.
Patrick, can you opine on how the committee in the past has dealt with this?
As Marty explains, this is a new change. So normally we deal with the height of the entire building, and that includes additions that are put on, 2nd stories, 3rd stories, whatever. And this rule changed a little bit. It's not an issue that I would consider one that the committee would push back on. And we did review the plans. As Marty said, the plans have not changed. They're exactly the same as what we saw. It just didn't come up as an issue because it wasn't a full addition. I don't think the committee would have any issues with it.
And excuse me, this is Marty again. I forgot to mention, if you wanted to see, I have the plans. I could share them if you want. The architect, Bill Smith, did a sightline drawing so that you can't see the top of the penthouse from the street, if that was a consideration.
I think if it's already been considered in the overall, and this is just a change in requirement, and we're talking what, about a foot, what?
It's one,
It's 1 foot 8 inches.
8 inches.
36.8 would be the
And this is in whose commission? Commissioner Harris, you want to comment?
I mean, I think this is fine. I have a lot of trust and confidence in Bill Smith, who is the architect. He also lives on that street. So I'm okay with still moving forward with the recommendation from the committee.
So just for clarification for everyone, it would be 3 special exceptions versus the 2 that was in data that you received today.
Okay. Commissioner, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I move that the full ANC support the 3 special exceptions for 1314 T Street Northwest.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioners, discussion. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. Motion passes.
Okay, so that's the only item on the agenda this evening, and our next.
Mr. Nelson, you do have another item. The historic designation on 733.
Oh, I didn't know that you were going to bring that up. Then I will ask the chair if he wants to have Zachary make a presentation, how he wants to go about doing this. I can make comments, but I think for the benefit of the commission, we probably should let him make a brief discussion.
Commissioner, you're the commissioner co-chair of that committee. Is that, shall we proceed?
I think we shall proceed. Yeah, there's no issue with that.
So then, Sable, you need to let Zachary Burt onto the screen.
Hold on. Actually, Zachary,
He should be there.
I allowed you to speak, but do you have a presentation? If not, I'm gonna have to let you rejoin as a panelist.
Yeah, I have a few slides.
Okay, hold on, give me 1 second.
And just to clarify for commissioners, I just noticed that the agenda that we sent in the chat that's on our website has the 733 Euclid historic designation, but the one that we all have doesn't have it, so that's why.
Yeah, that was my mistake, Commissioner Boehner.
That's why I was surprised when he said that. I'm using the old agenda, so.
Yeah, and let me just put this in the chat right now. Here's the nomination that was submitted to HPO back in April. And also just for everyone's references, these are the letters of support that have come in so far. Okay, so let me share my screen here. Okay, great. So my name is Zachary Burt. I'm the Community Outreach and Grants Manager at the DC Preservation League. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I presented to the ZPD committee on May 16th, and so I'm happy to be here. So I'm here to talk about the National Association for the Relief of Destitute Colored Women and Children, which is also known as the Meriwether Home for Children on 733 Euclid Street Northwest. As I mentioned, DCPL submitted a nomination for this property back in early April. I'm just going to go through, I know there's a lot on the agenda. I'm just going to go through real quickly some of the basic facts about the home and its history and kind of where things stand right now. So it's in obviously the Pleasant Plains neighborhood. and it was constructed around 1879 in a Second Empire style. It has this really unique position on the street where it's a little bit raised up from the sidewalk. There's two sets of stairs that go up to it. And then there was an addition added to the rear in 1931 on the alleyway. So real quick, the National Association, it was established in 1863 during the Civil War. This was at a time when a lot of formerly enslaved women and children were coming into the surrounding area as the war was raging on, and they were finally free to move to this part of the country. So there was obviously this new thing going on where they had to basically care for these people that were basically living in tent cities here in the district and in the surrounding area. So that's how the National Association was established by Congress. It originally was in the Burleith neighborhood, which is just north of Georgetown. And then it moved to present day 8th and Euclid Streets, where the school is now on Euclid Street. I just want to add that a famous individual associated with the National Association was Elizabeth Keckley. She was a seamstress to Mary Todd Lincoln. She wrote an expose on the Lincoln White House in the late 1860s. And she actually died of a stroke at the National Association at the second home in the early 20th century. So she's associated with the organization, but not the home that we're talking about here today. So as the government was starting to develop the land that became Banneker Rec Center and those surrounding buildings, they were forced to move across the street to 733 Euclid in 1930. They added the addition that I mentioned in 1931. And then following, or rather after 1932, they focused exclusively on African-American children here in the district, which it was one of, I think, only 2 organizations that did that at the time. And then in the 1940s to 50s, the organization was renamed the Meriwether Home after Mary Louise Robinson Meriwether, who had been the president since 1919, and that's where that name comes about. In 1971, the Meriwether Home closed, and then after a series of different things that were at the property, including a daycare, in 2006, it became ECAC, which I think everyone's probably very familiar with. Also known as the Emergence Community Arts Collective, which was led by Sylvia Robinson. I'm sure as many of you know, she tragically passed away in 2017. And then over the recent history in the past several months, there's been a sale of the property and then a raise notice. And once the raise notice was issued, even though DCPL had been working with people in the community, once the raise notice went out, we jumped in and we wrote the nomination and submitted it on April 8th. And now there's been public notice for this hearing to consider the nomination. And it's going to be on June 23rd at the HPRB. And then I just want to mention real quick, I give you that history. The DCPL nomination argues for history and events under National Register Criterion A or DC Inventory Criterion B. Normally, there's 4 significance criteria. There's history, famous individuals, architecture, and archaeology. But we're focused here on the history and events, obviously, because this is the only property that's associated with the National Association that's still standing today. So that right there makes it very significant building on 733 Euclid. And then the nomination focuses on the period of 1930 when the National Association moved in to 1971 when the Meriwether Home closed. So even though this is a significant institution going back to the Civil War, and this home, was constructed in 1879, we're focusing solely on when those 2 things came together in 1930 and then when it ended in 71. So with that said, I can stop sharing my screen and answer any questions, because I know I went through that really quickly.
So I have just a couple of comments, and then anyone else can ask questions, but just for clarification point. Zach, can you just take just a second to explain the purpose of a preservation of a building and what that entails? It doesn't, from my understanding, and I just want you to verify this, it preserves the building and that's all it does. It doesn't preserve anything interior wise per se. It doesn't preserve anything that's the building is going to be used for in the future. It's just preserving the actual building itself in its entirety, correct?
Yeah, Patrick, I think that's a really good question. And I think there's a two-part answer to it. Generally speaking, zoning is what regulates use. This has nothing to do with zoning. So of course, like I think many people in the community would like this to become a community center or stay that way, but the nomination has no authority over that. This could become whatever it may be because we just don't regulate use. So, and then the next part is this nomination is just for the exterior of the building. There are nominations that get written for interiors of properties, but there's actually only about 25 properties in the whole district that have designated interiors. Most of the designations in the city cover the exterior of a building. And I think as we've talked about before at the previous meeting, the 733 Euclid property, most of the interior has been severely altered over the years, so it doesn't have very high integrity. So that was not even in consideration when the nomination was written. So it's just solely focused on preserving the, I guess you could say, the facade of the building, which is kind of the buzzword people usually use. The facade and the shell.
So then the second thing that I just want to make clear to the commission is that I personally have been involved in this project for many, many years. I have no issue whatsoever with the preservation application. That's not something that I am going to take an opposition or support per se to, but I do want to say, just so everyone is aware of on the commission, that the hearing that was scheduled for the 23rd of June has been postponed to July. I believe it's the 28th. Hold on 1 second, I'm gonna tell you so you know. It would be July 21st. And that is being done at the request of the developer because they have been meeting with HBO, with Steve Colcutt and Kim Williams, who is part of this designation request, to come up with a plan for development that would include the original structure and 2 buildings aside from it on the vacant parts of the parcel that's available now. And the reason that is happening is because Steve and Kim both feel it's important to be able to be, shall I say, quote unquote, in control of the whole site, to be able to conform the design that comes out of this in conjunction with what the original building looks like. If they do not do that, and they put the designation up and it's voted, then it knocks the rest of the site off the radar screen from HBO, and they will only be in control of the site, the building that's there now. So I have had a couple of conversations with the team that's working on this, and they have requested already through HBO to have the date pushed back so they could work on it. And their plan is to come to the ZPD committee this month on the 20th to show their proposal and get the ANC to support it through the ZPD committee as it should. So I'll leave it at that. And I see that Max has his hand up.
Yeah, and I just want to add, thank you for adding that, Patrick, because I had heard some mentions about them asking for a delay, and I hadn't seen that come out officially in the public notice. So it sounds like that's going to come out shortly.
Yeah, the notice just came out today. I just got the notice, but my understanding from my conversations recently this week was that that is going to be postponed.
Okay, thank you so much.
Steve and Kim together as a team.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I don't know if Patrick, you can see the little hands, Chair Turner and then Commissioner Ewert have.
Yeah, Chair Turner, you can go first.
I have over a decade of experience in working with the team at ECAC and what ECAC did for the community and the community events that were hosted and supported at the facility. And when Sylvia passed, there were lots of obviously complications and many, many years of trying to save the collective and the building. And that just didn't pan out. And then suddenly when they have a buyer and a developer, this nomination appears when there was no interest in doing this nomination in 2017. So it wasn't until the project was moving forward that this group got together for historic. So I find the timing a little questionable about trying to save the building. And the building is not going to be saved as a collective like was before. I don't see that in the application. Given the additions and changes to the building, I don't understand why anything historic beyond the front facade should be considered. I do understand the historic nature. I thought there were ways of doing it as a designation. I understand the of the building. I don't see much more than the facade as a way of retaining the history that goes back, which goes back beyond this building. I think it goes, what, about 50 years before? I forgot the timeline.
I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit. You said something about 50 years?
Yeah, you're referencing 50 years of history as well in your presentation beyond when it moved to ECAC. Is that correct? It was built when 18 something.
Built around 1879, and then the National Association moved in.
Okay, now we're dealing with. So we're dealing with about 50 years there, and the history is good. The importance of it is good. Is the nomination to do just the front facade feasible?
Well,
for the entire building.
Let me clarify. I know I said facade, and I was using that as a shorthand, and I shouldn't have used that. I mean the building, the exterior of the building.
You said facade and shell, and I know that means the building.
Yeah.
I'm asking if the nomination would consider the facade only.
My understanding is that would have to be up to the discretion of HPRB. When we write nominations, we write them for buildings, structures, districts, things like that. You can't write a nomination necessarily for a facade.
Okay, I'll go to Commissioner Ewert.
The only question I had was just a confirmation with the rest of the commission that this would not be voted on tonight. We were just kind of getting the frontline information from Zachary, and that this would go to the ZPD next month. We've gotten the confirmation on that. So thank you.
So this is not up for, because of the delay, we're not going to vote on it. Is that correct? Okay. All right, thank you.
There is a statement in the Q&A from Mr. Darren Jones, and I believe most of us did receive a support letter that you sent us, Mr. Jones. I will say it's probably best for you to attend the ZPD meeting this month on, Patrick, what's the date?
20th.
On the 20th? I think it's the 15th.
No.
3rd.
It's Monday the 20th.
Oh, okay. I messed that up.
I put the wrong date on.
That was my fault. I'm sorry. Monday the 20th. So I recommend, attending that meeting to discuss the Pleasant Plains Civic Association support on that.
Darren has a long history with the building and the collective.
And I would just add to what Sable said is that, as I said on the onset, I'm personally at this point not against the designation. I agree with James that and I actually said to Zachary when he made his presentation at the ZPD meeting that I'm a little concerned with the timing and all of that. I understand how that works. I've been here long enough to understand that. But I also want to make sure that we're doing this through the right channels. And there's no need to have the ANC at this moment in time vote on the historic designation when the developer reached out to us, is working towards coming up with a plan that will be acceptable to the HBO people. And it may not be 100% acceptable to the community in the sense of what they think they want and what they'd like. I understand that, but we want to be able to work with this in a way that comes out to be acceptable. And at this point in time, I mean, I'll make this statement on my own. It's not official, but the designation 99.995% is going to go through. That's a given. We're not arguing that. It's just trying to make sure that we can get this site developed in a way that is acceptable to all of the parties that are involved. So as she said, anyone and everyone is free to come to the ZPD meeting next month, and we will discuss that once the developer comes back with their plan for whatever it is that they're doing, which, like I said, they're working with HPO right now to come up with a concept that is agreeable to both parties.
Yeah, and I just want to echo that. I was really thrilled when I heard that the developer was working with Mr. Calcott and Mrs. Williams, which I thought that was just awesome. So I'm looking forward, I'll be at the ZPD meeting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they present.
Okay, so then I guess in conclusion, I'll make my final statement to say that we are not going to take any action on this tonight, as they will be coming to the ZPD on the 20th. And then next month's meeting, we will take an official ANC vote on the entirety of the project.
And your next meeting is?
June 20th, Monday.
Okay, thank you. Transportation, Commissioner Ewert.
Thank you, commissioners.
We skipped economic development. Thank you, Zach.
Oh, I did. Commissioner Handerhan.
Hi, everyone. Having some.
Both of you.
Yeah, having some technical difficulties, but I think I am back in and after getting booted out. So I can be really quick. I know it's been a long meeting already. Wanted to just note that the committee met last month. There's nothing to vote on this month for us. Committee met earlier in May and talked predominantly about the phase 2 of the Grimke redevelopment project. So I think folks probably know there's a long history with that site and ANC 1B. Phase 2 is going to start in mid-July, and it's going to feature residential development, which is 30% affordable on the current site where the African American Civil War Memorial Museum is located. That museum has moved into the main Grimke building. So this is that big brick structure. I think it was originally a gymnasium in the 9.5 alley area. There are a number of concerns from the community around the construction and the project overall. Also, a lot of support with the arts function there. So we had a pretty robust discussion about that. We continue to be interested in hosting a series around the future of U Street and the intent of the Duke plan. Nothing to share on that. We're thinking it might be better for a fall discussion at this point, given the amount of travel that people have in July and August. Otherwise, our next meeting is going to feature a presentation around how to start and develop a bid, which has been an interest of some community members. So we invited a fellow bid leader who put us in touch with the DC Bid Council's executive director, who's going to be joining us on June 16th at 6:30. If anyone's interested in that, would encourage you to join and attend. And that's really all I have. Happy to answer any questions. And I don't think we have anyone in the audience from any of the main streets or clean streets, but if they could raise their hand, that would be great. Okay, any questions? All right, thanks so much.
Thank you. Transportation.
Did you say the next meeting was?
June 16th. It's a Thursday at
Okay.
6:30. Third Thursday. Just comes very early this month.
Alrighty. So we have, for the Transportation Committee, we reviewed 3 resolutions that we are bringing to the commission today. The first one is a proposed resolution for a U Street parking study. This is requesting that DDOT and DEMPED conduct a study to analyze the on-street parking that exists on U Street and what could be available with the 3 planned developments that DEMPED are leading along the U Street corridor, including the Reeves Center, the one on like the 1700th block of U Street, the police kind of the parking garage, and then Department of Housing, Finance, something or the other. I always mix it up, but the one on 9th Street and Florida Avenue. And so basically what this resolution is asking is for DEMPED and DDOT to consider removing on-street parking to be consistent with public parking that would be available underneath these 3 new developments, and with the primary goal of increasing the amount of public space that's available for pedestrians, cyclists, for the bus priority lane, as part of the Move DC, U Street, Florida Avenue are high importance corridors for the bus priority lane as well. And so this resolution is asking that these 2 departments really take a look at like ways in which that we can remove parking to increase the amount of space and make the corridor just more safe. I know a lot of folks who go out on U Street, they don't have the most space to kind of walk around, and I think that this is a potential way to kind of make the avenue a little bit more pedestrian friendly. So with that said, I'm going to just propose a motion to that the full ANC support the proposed resolution from the Transportation Committee.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Commissioner Kensick, discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the garage parking that's going to be available, is there a charge to that?
So in the resolution, I mentioned that that could be part of the study, and that we would support stuff that is consistent with existing charges. Right now, I don't believe U Street has residential parking permits, so correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're correct.
This wouldn't be like, we're not removing those specific spaces, so it would be a kind of like a 1-for-1 replacement, essentially, in my ideal world that I'm creating in my head.
It's simply a study.
Yep. And I'm not seeing any comments or
no comment.
Folks raising.
We have a motion.
Chat. So yeah, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 8-0. Thank you. So next resolution from the Transportation Committee is for a pilot for residential pickup and drop off. I mentioned this earlier as part of the amendment. It is not just on W Street between 15th and 13th Street Northwest, but it is also on the 1900th block of 8th Street. This is something that my wonderful community chair, Santiago, put together. Something that we've all kind of noticed is that, especially since the pandemic, the rate that folks are ordering stuff is just skyrocketed, and a lot of these like Uber Eats and Uber Eats is now kind of competing with also like UPS, US Postal Service, and all these other delivery services, that it's causing a lot of traffic on residential streets, especially streets like W where it's a one-way, and you get a lot of backup. And so the Transportation Committee is recommending support from this. The resolution identifies specific locations that can be used for this residential pickup pilot areas, mostly at the corner of streets, and also identifies some areas that have been designated for like, I think there are specific areas that are designated for residents with disabilities that were requested by residents that no longer live in the area, and so those parking spaces are de facto empty a lot of the time, and often get used by these by delivery services anyway. And so it just kind of creates an opportunity for DDOT to kind of go back and look at some potential places for these to get repurposed. I'll make a motion to that the ANC support the Transportation Committee recommendation to support the resolution.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion. Commissioner Bena?
Yeah, just quick, sorry. Is it only the intent for like delivery drop off, or could it also potentially be for like rideshare drop off? Drop them off on W and then they walk to U Street to avoid having more cars on U Street. Is that part of the intent as well?
I mean, it can be, yeah, for sure. I don't think that there's a limit to like who can use these spaces for pickup and drop off. Essentially, I think in discussions we've had with in the past with DDOT, the way that this would work effectively is that they would be like considered like
loading zone.
Loading zones effectively, yeah, exactly. And that we have like existing signage in place that can kind of fulfill the mission of what this resolution says.
Perfect, thanks.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing related to Lyft. I have learned recently that it's DDOT has worked with Lyft in the past to, like, if you're delivering to an area, a note can pop up on the driver's phone. And so that's also discussed in the resolution to kind of like, hey, use this tool more. Like, let folks know that this space exists. We can't like ping them and tell them to go there, but we can let them know that there's a space that exists and you don't need to double park. Commissioner Orlowski?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the resolution is to support a study.
It's for to support a pilot, which is effectively a in-person study.
Okay.
Commissioner Harris?
I just want to note, I think this pilot is very needed, especially in between the streets on W. I just would want to confirm that these aren't going to impact the bike lanes, right?
No, these would be like in existing parking spaces.
Okay, great. Yeah, because right now it's unfortunately impacting bike lanes because that's what drivers are taking up, which is really, really terrible. So I am in full support of this. I think this is great.
And just to add to that, it's especially frustrating when drivers double park in the bike lane, because not only are they blocking the car lane, they're blocking the bike lane as well. Whereas if they just block the car lane, wouldn't have to worry about the bike lane. So for my safety, please stop doing that. Awesome. So
community as
all
well.
all those in favor?
Community discussion.
Oh, sorry, community comments. Sorry.
Okay, I
just
see Mr. Daldone. I'm going to allow you to speak.
Thank you. Well, thank you for introducing the resolution. I'm not sure I understand it. I don't see a single diagram or picture. I note that you said that the corners are frequently used for this sort of thing and that they will be more or less officially using it now. And let me ask, does that mean that passenger cars can also use it? And that how long would a delivery be there? Is it a pickup and drop off means that it might be momentary? Is it longer than momentary? And are the, I have a series of questions and maybe it's confusing, but if the corners are generally the spot where more recently DDOT is careful to leave them open so you can see what is coming around the corner. Now you want to park there. And so I wonder if it's going to be exclusively not for passengers. And I also don't want to see a whole lot of people parking in the middle of the street blocking traffic. Certainly that would not be a good thing. But we have an incident on the corner of V and 11th where the residents are complaining that bollards have been placed where they otherwise might have been able to park temporarily. It is the corner, it's the four corners. Is that conceivably going to be the sort of situation where you want people to park now, even though in those corners, the DDOT is trying to prevent people from parking?
I believe, I think that's an entirely different scenario. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I can address these issues. So first of all, Nick, thanks for coming. I appreciate you being here and asking all these questions. Yes, as Commissioner Baina asked earlier, we wouldn't limit what pickup and drop off could be. It could be humans, it could be for Lyft, it could be for small delivery vehicles like what Amazon kind of puts out nowadays. The pilot is not asking to limit that. Also, this is a request for a pilot. This is for DDOT to initiate and they would set the ground rules. So we wouldn't be able to do that within the ANC. We don't have that much power. I wish we did sometimes, but no, we don't. And then lastly, about the clearance zones, no, this would not include the clearance zones. It's illegal to park in those. The point of those is to make sure that when cars reach the intersection, that they can see pedestrians coming by. We wouldn't support blocking those because we like to focus on pedestrian safety in the Transportation Committee. And then, yeah, lastly, just regarding the V and 11th, because I think that's an issue that you care a lot about. We've been in contact with the Pastor Hart at the church, and believe we've been able to resolve a lot of the issues there, and are moving forward with DDOT and Pastor Hart to kind of make that intersection a bit more safe. Does that answer your questions, or is there anything that you'd like me to expand on?
No, I think it's confusing, and it's interesting to see where things are going bit by bit and how it might be repeated in other sectors.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? I'm not seeing anything else in the attendees. So with that, all those in favor, or no?
I believe Chair Turner needs to take the vote.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, we have do we have a motion and a second on this one?
Second.
We do.
All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you.
All right, lastly, we have a proposed resolution for converting 11th Street Northwest bike lanes that currently exist just as paint to parking protected bike lanes. Essentially what this would do is just shift the parking from the anterior of 11th Street to the interior 11th Street to just create a little bit more of a buffer zone for cyclists to ride safely 11th Street is one of the most busy bike routes in the entire city. And we think that this is just a good step to make it just a little bit more safe for cyclists. The resolution mentions connecting Monroe Street northwest to Pennsylvania Avenue, but also requests that DDOT propose a design for kind of filling in some of these blank spots as well. So the Transportation Committee had full support, and I would like to make a motion to move forward with the Transportation Committee recommendation.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second discussion. Commissioner, is there currently a bike lane that goes from Monroe to Pennsylvania?
It's bits and pieces. It's a piecemeal bike lane. Some parts are painted, some parts are parking protected, and some parts are sharrows. Not sure if you're familiar with that term, but essentially riding with traffic. The resolution, the goal of the resolution is to increase cyclist safety throughout the corridor by kind of asking for DDOT to come forward with a design that would increase that safety.
Okay, so the motion though is to convert the painted ones. So this is just a section of it, right?
Yeah, hold on one moment. I can pull up the language.
It's the convert the painted bike lanes.
Yeah, this actually is the same question.
And I'm productive. Commissioner Orlowski, you were asking the same?
Yeah, because I mean, I live on 11th Street, so there is no bike lane on 11th Street, at least right here, and for several blocks north and south of where I live, right between U and V. So I'm curious to know what the resolution says about, parts of 11th Street like this that don't have bike lanes at all.
I think it'd be helpful if I just shared my screen.
Or what does it mean by painted? Because there are little, the bike icons on the street that are meant to make motorists aware of bikes, but it's not a bike lane.
Yeah, so I mean, that language was mine. It was added just for the agenda. The resolution, it highlights that Move DC identifies 11th Street as a bike priority lane. It mentions that it connects to several other transit ways that are being developed throughout the city. It identifies that the Vision Zero Omnibus Act requires that DDOT construct a protected bike lane or cycle tract on a road segment where called for in the multimodal long-range transportation plan, which this is in. And then be it resolved that ANC 1B endorses Move DC's plan to include connected bicycle lanes on 11th Street Northwest from Monroe Street Northwest to Pennsylvania Avenue, and urges that said lanes be converted to protected bicycle facilities. And then we're also asking for DDOT to evaluate and create these plans for converting existing bicycle facilities. So it's a little bit of both. We'd like for DDOT to both propose a plan to kind of like fill in those gaps, and then where those painted lanes exist, like north of Florida Avenue, for example, connecting through to Monroe, I believe, all the way, but I think only up to Harvard is in our ANC 1B. Those are painted. We would like to convert those to the protected bike lanes, parking protected bike lanes.
So you're asking them to do what's already in their long range plan?
Yeah, and that we would support it if they
did something.
If they propose something, and we're asking them to propose something.
So we're asking them for a study. That's
no, we're asking them to come forward with designs. It's already been studied. They've identified this as a in the long range plan for bicycle facilities.
So they've done a study, and this is just asking them to now act on the study.
Exactly. Studies sit for a long time.
Might be a suggestion to remove the study request from the title.
That's fair. We can do that in the amendment. Or we can amend that. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
And just updating the commissioners as well in their titles.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay. If we could go back to the screen, we have a motion second. Let's now vote. Now that we've reviewed the resolution. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Passes. Thank you.
The next Transportation Committee meeting will be on Wednesday, June 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. ABR Commissioner Boehner.
Okay. We met this month and it is still restaurant renewal season. We had a lot before us, some robust discussions. We've got a couple of different recommendations to vote on. So first up, VIP Lounge at 1926 9th Street Northwest in 1B02, Commissioner Orlaski's district. This one's a mouthful. Substantial change to change the license class from Retailer C Restaurant to Retailer C Tavern. Also to change the hours of operation, alcoholic beverage sales and consumption, and live entertainment, and to increase the total occupancy load from 75 to 185. Folks will recall that last month, VIP Lounge was also before this commission, and we protested their restaurant license renewal. They are, as I just stated, they're seeking to convert from a restaurant to a tavern, add entertainment, etc. They're basically trying to flip from a quaint restaurant to a nightclub. And we heard a lot of opposition from committee members, from community members. So the ABR recommendation is to recommend the full ANC protest the substantial change application on peace, order, quiet, and all applicable grounds. The motion passed with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. And that is the motion. Is there any comments from you, Commissioner Orlaski?
No, I think Commissioner Boehner covered it quite well. I don't have anything additional.
And Commissioner Orlaski, why don't you move it?
Sure, I move that the ANC vote to support the ABR committee's recommendation to protest VIP Lounge's substantial change applications on the grounds of peace, order, quiet, and all other applicable grounds.
Is there a second?
Second. Second.
We have a second. Discussion, commissioners? All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion passes. Next item.
Okay, next up, we have Alero, 1301 U Street Northwest, 1B12 in Commissioner Harris's district. This is a renewal. The committee had very minimal issues, just one specific noise issue, and we already have a settlement agreement with this establishment. It is, a little dated, but it is a pretty strong settlement agreement. Commissioner Harris, do you have any comments? I know we had discussed potentially not moving forward on this if a agreement with the business could be reached offline. Do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, still haven't been able to reach an agreement, but I don't think it is worth the ANC's time to protest since it is a small issue. I understand, if there's any community member in the audience about this, like just realistically, it has to do with kind of the more loud, abrupt I feel silly like saying this, but it's the loud, abrupt pot banging and birthday singing. But I think it's just a small disturbance, although I get it. Like if it wakes people up, like I totally understand. I live on U Street, I know. But I think that's more of a concern that we can negotiate with them instead of filing a protest. So I will not be moving for protest tonight.
Okay, unless anyone else has a different opinion, I'll move on to the next one, which I have a feeling is a similar issue. So Busboys and Poets, 1390 V Street Northwest and 1B12 Commissioner Harris's district, also renewal. The committee did pass a motion, 7 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 abstention. This was also very narrowly protested on the concerns specifically about trash. Commissioner Harris, do you want to speak on this? Were you able to make contact?
I have not been able to make contact either, but I live right above Busboys, so I'm not like too worried about it. Again, I think it's a concern that can be addressed without a protest or a settlement agreement. I think we just want to address it because it is, it is a big concern. Trash, breeds more rats, and there have been increased incidents with that trash. You all might have heard SC frequently barks at the people taking out the trash. But I think it's something we can solve offline and not something that I think warrants a full ANC protest.
Fair enough. Anyone else have thoughts on that? Okay, we can move along. The next item is Brooklyn, DC, which is at 1212 U Street Northwest, also in 1B12 Commissioner Harris's district, a renewal. So I put this on here because this was a weirdly timed placard. For community members that have stuck with us, normally what happens is the placards come to our ABR committee. We hear from the establishment, we vote on a recommendation, then we kind of ratify it here in the full ANC. But this one, and we have to do it, the full ANC before the deadline. However, this placard came to us right after our last committee meeting, and the deadline is such that we would not be able to discuss it at our next committee meeting in time for us to vote on it in the full ANC. So it's weird timing. So if anything were to be done on it, we would have to do it at this full meeting. So Commissioner Harris, I don't know if you have community feedback. I have not seen anything about Brooklyn, DC in our ANC feedback form, online form. So it's up to you if you kind of want to take any action. I mean, we can protest it to just formally have it on the books and meet the deadline, and then invite them to the next, ABR committee, and then potentially not actually communicate it to ABRA, the protest. So, I mean, it's however you want to handle it.
Yeah, I think this one is tricky because I have received several emails, and then I've also seen, and I think it's mostly around the trash. I haven't heard anything in terms of noise kind of complaints from anyone. It's really around the trash. I do know a community member who has been very active and on it, and they have been able to kind of fix, I guess, the different trash issues, but it's very reactive as opposed to proactive. I'm kind of leaning towards, I don't know if this warrants a full protest, but I don't know if other commissioners have thoughts on that.
So
I don't. I think I'd be confident in them being able to come to the table. I have, of course, walked by this many times and agree with you that the trash is the biggest issue, but I don't see any noise or lines or other specific things that I know have warranted protest before.
Yeah, so just the petition deadline is July 5th, which is just before our or it's just before our July 7th meeting. So we could potentially protest it here and invite them to come speak at our June 15th meeting, but it's up to you. If I don't hear that it's a major issue, we can just move along.
I mean, trash is definitely a big issue. I just don't know. I don't think it warrants a like full protest when they've at least responded to community members. I think the community member is a bit relentless about it, but I appreciate their advocacy and getting something done. Yeah, I'm kind of the sense, I don't know, just based on, the overall kind of what we are going to have to look at as an ANC. I don't think the trash, like, it is a big issue, but I don't think it warrants a full out protest.
Okay, fair enough. We'll trust the SMD commissioner's judgment. So that is everything that I have. Quickly before I do go, though, two things. So one sort of initiative, two sort of initiative that our committee has been discussing and working on. One, it has been difficult in renewal season that ABRA is not listing the contact information of a direct contact at each establishment on the renewals. So for a new application or a substantial change application, they list a contact person, an email address, and a phone number, so it's easy to get in touch with them, invite them to our committee meetings. I'm trying to work and get ABRA to change that for the renewals so that come the tavern renewals, where we'll be inundated at the end of this year, we will have a contact information, a contact person. It really shouldn't be that hard for them to get us that information. So that's one issue that I may, engage some of you on, or try to have all of you sign on to a letter with me. It'll be, more informal. And then the second thing is just to make commissioners aware, there has been a request by some members of the ABR committee to look into the ANC securing some legal assistance, some counsel to assist with the tavern license renewals at the end of this year. So all the taverns are going to come due at once. In Commissioner Henderson, Commissioner Harris, and Commissioner Orlasky's district alone, it's dozens and dozens. And we just don't have the bandwidth to pursue all these settlement agreements, pursue all these protests if we need to protest. So there's been a request that we look into potentially pursuing the assistance of counsel. I am contacting other ANCs, other ABR chairs, to see if they've used anyone, see their thoughts on it. I just want folks to know that I'm kind of laying the groundwork to try and see what that would cost, so that at a later date we can make a determination if that something would be a judicious use of resources or not. I'm kind of ambivalent at this point, but just want to make that known. And if anyone has any comments on that, you're welcome to share now.
Commissioner Bain, I will update you on what we've done in the past when we were moving on using a council or ABR. The plan was to do a retainer and use council only when we went to full protest. Not for the settlement agreements and items, but for the full protest. What we do know is that we looked at a retainer of 25,000, which if we were to use it on a protest, it would be one protest.
Okay.
That's about the cost.
Okay.
So
to look into.
We can still do that. Plus, we have to find someone experienced in ABRA who does not represent establishments in our ANC.
Yeah, that lies the challenge
as a challenge,
because most of the ABRA attorneys are for the restaurants and bars. So just wanted to make people aware that that's been a request from some members of the committee / community, and it's something that we're looking into. I don't feel
more details on it and the past materials that we did.
Sounds great.
I also discussed with Frank.
Sounds good. So the next meeting is Wednesday, June 15th, 7 p.m. And I will just remind folks who are interested in ABR stuff, we have a lot of information on our committee webpage that talks more about the process. Thanks, everyone.
And thank you again for your work on the committee. Another big year for the committee. Administrative 1B 10 is vacant, continues to be vacant. We're now at the point of vacancies will not be re-advertised. Given the petition period coming up in August for commissioners to be on the November ballot. Redistricting has passed the subcommittee, is moving to the council. There were some minor, I would say minor readjustments consistent with the request that was made of 1B through the task force and the council member's office. There was not any substantial changes to the proposal from the task force. Once the redistricting is approved, it will be effective for January 3rd. That is when new commissioners in new geographies will be seated. There will be petitions for the new geography SMDs in August. The petitions will be 25 in-person signatures as before COVID. And we are working with the subcommittee to encourage them to do outreach, education, and awareness of the ANC redistricting in each ward. So geographies will change, commissions will change in Ward 1. We're adding a new ANC for Pleasant Plains. So there are changes for Ward 1. For the past 20 years, it's been 20, maybe 30 years, it's been pretty consistent in the geography. This is a big change in adding the 5th one, and it does drive the percentages down to 1A, 1B was once the largest in the city at 40-some% of the ward is now dropping to around 30%. So it does make us more consistent in confined geographic areas to focus on the needs of a geographic area. Any questions?
I do just want to say thank you so much to you, Chair Turner, for your involvement in this process and just attention to detail and support in specifically the letter that ANC 1B sent for requests from the council member. I also want to recognize someone who I know was in the audience earlier, but I think he has gone on with his evening, but Santiago Lakatos, he really was also instrumental in the Ward 1 redistricting task force and just in my own understanding of where the lines were being drawn, was really happy that we were able to continue with 930 Club's inclusion in the 1B area. And then of course have our other 2 requests for Ward 1 fulfilled. So thank you to your work, Chair Turner, and to everyone on that Ward 1 redistricting task force. And the final vote is on Tuesday of next week. So it's all happening.
We don't anticipate any changes to the Ward 1. So that is good news. Announcements. Is LaToya Davenport still on?
I see her.
If LaToya wants to make any comments, particularly about, we've been getting a lot of good information from the U.S. Attorney's Office on recent case pleas and efforts and trainings that they're doing. So we're most appreciative of the U.S. Attorney's Office and LaToya's work.
If you would like to speak, go ahead and raise your hand, Ms. Davenport.
Maybe we could come back to her if she puts in the chat that she's back.
Is Jared Allen on?
No, he is not.
And I believe Office of Council Member Nadeau, Kevin is on?
Yes.
Yes, I am on. Thank you so much, commissioners, for giving me a brief moment of your time. My name is Kevin Pham. I just joined Brianna Nadeau's office as her Deputy Director of Constituent Services. I've had the opportunity to meet a couple commissioners already, and I look forward to working with the rest of the commissioners who I haven't had a chance to work with yet. I'm just going to share, so I started this week. I'm going to share a couple updates from the office, and happy to answer any questions, as well as if I don't know the answers to the question, I'll take a note and we'll follow up with you after this meeting. Regarding the budget, it finally passed the second round of voting in council. There were a lot of great investments in public safety, housing and homelessness, transportation, etc. Some of the ones that I think are of particular interest to 1B would be, sorry, give me one sec. To 1B would be about 100,000 allocated for improvements to the Park of LaDroit. Particularly, Council Member Nadeau is interested in addressing the parkways in the parks, as well as the dog park. There are also nearly 16 million allocated for different types of vouchers for individuals experiencing homelessness, as well as folks on the DCHA waiting list, LGBTQ residents, and a couple vouchers reserved for returning citizens. There is 13.4 million investments in violence reduction programs in Columbia Heights, Park View, as well as LaDroit Park, through the Office of Neighborhood and Safety and Engagement. Additionally, there is $180,000 to expand behavioral health outreach at the Columbia Heights Civic Plaza. In terms of legislative updates, there are two acts that I want to touch on. The first one is related to the ability to access affordable life-saving nutrition. It's called the Infant Formula Consumer Protection Emergency Amendment Act of 2022. The council member worked in collaboration with the Office of the Attorney General, and it was co-introduced with all of the council members' colleagues. As an emergency measure, this legislation requires a 2/3 vote to be adopted. The second legislation I want to touch on is the Human Rights Sanctuary Amendment Act of 2022. Under this law, the district won't cooperate with investigations or out-of-state bounty lawsuits meant to block and criminalize human rights. This act is meant to support or make the city a safe place for people seeking abortion care, queer, trans individuals and their families, folks in need of gender-affirming care, and others. I have two more updates before closing. The second to last update is that the council member has organized a task force to address issues in the corridor relating nightlife along the U Street corridor. Members of your ANC, as well as the U Street Main Street, Shaw Main Street, ABRA, DCRA, MPD, and other community leaders will be looped in. And I'm sure I'll get to learn more about this task force and be involved as well. And my last update are 3 events which the council member will be involved in over the next few days. We are restarting our annual pool party or pool day, which hasn't happened in the last 2 years due to the pandemic. And it's going to be at Banneker this Saturday from 12 to 3. So feel free to stop by if you would like to chat with the council member on any issues that are important to you. The council member will also be hosting the Brianna on Your Block community meeting this Tuesday, June 6th. It's going to be from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at Mark's Cafe. And the address is 3203 Mount Pleasant Street Northwest. And lastly, we're hosting a teletown hall, which will occur on Tuesday from 5 to 6. And I'm going to send all of this in a link after I'm done talking. If you don't receive the updates automatically to your email, I suggest you go to Brianne knadeau.com and sign up for our newsletter. And I'll also drop my contact information in the chat for any commissioners or community leaders that would like to connect with me during this meeting or after this meeting as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, announcements?
I think Commissioner
actually have one
Harris and
question.
Commissioner
Oh,
Pensick.
yeah. Questions for Kevin?
Thanks for joining us tonight, Kevin. We haven't really heard from Councilmember Nadeau's office in a couple meetings, so thank you for joining. I did have a question on one of the budget items. You said it was $180,000 for behavioral health outreach for Columbia Heights Civic Plaza. Is that going to District Bridges?
Yes, I believe, give me 1 second. Yes, it was because of how successful the partnership was with District Bridge. I believe the funding will be allocated back to that organization.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Kevin, how are you? Welcome. I had a quick question in regards to one of the constituents wrote to me. His name is Chris Weatherington. He works with Restoring Pride, which helps people serving the LGBT community as early as possible without having to buy or lease market rates. So what he's asking for is if there's a possibility to get a list of city-owned tax sales so they can look into that. And I don't know if that's something you can produce. That would be very helpful.
Is there any chance you could connect me and this individual via email? And I'll drop my email into the chat now.
Commissioner Kinsick, you can go to the Office of Tax and Revenue and get the list of tax sales.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Commissioners, announcements? Community announcements.
Nothing in the community, but Commissioner Kensick has his hands up.
Yeah, hi, Chair. Last month we discussed the response letter for Mayor Bowser's budget, which Commissioner Ewert, Commissioner Baina, and myself worked on, and wanted to see if I can make a motion for the full ANC to make sure this letter is mailed to both Councilmember Nadeau and Chairperson Mendelson.
So what we had discussed at the time was that it was already too late because the budget was already done. So the letter was being uploaded to the ANC resolutions portal where all those resolutions go. And that's what I was planning to do with the letter. And I believe I think I did it already. I'll double check on that, but.
Yeah, and we approved the letter just with those stipulations last meeting. So we already had the motion and the approval for you to finalize that and then for Commissioner Baina to upload. So I think that all was completed. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Were there any community announcements?
I don't see any.
All right, thanks everyone. Have a happy Pride Month. And we will reassemble in July. Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.